Hey, welcome everybody to another edition here of Faith Greater Than Fear. And we are in some interesting times, and we continue to see those times changing. And so by popular demand, we've got John Rawls back with us today. John is just doing some fabulous work. I want him to talk about just overview of what he's been doing globally. But in these days, I know we've been really struggling. God, how long can we last? How long is this really exactly going to go? And we don't know, but God's given us some hope, and John's going to talk about that today. So John, welcome.
Well, thanks. And I'm honored to get to do it again, Mike. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You were one of the most popular guys back a couple of months ago, and hey, you've got lots to share. So tell us overall first a couple of how you're doing and anything with the fam, and then the 30,000 foot view globally and what you do.
Yeah, well, we are very busy and doing okay. I did some blood work, as I shared before. I had been fighting cancer for a while, and some of the blood markers came back and didn't look positive here this last week. So I'm going to do a CT scan this week, and then it'll probably take another week before those results come back. I'm not nervous about it. I'm not scared about it. It is what it's going to be. And we just moved down to the Maryville, Tennessee area, and are getting close to family. And God has just been faithful in every step of this journey. He is consistent, so he doesn't seem to show answers way early. So it's just in time, just whatever, but he is so good, and he will and is good regardless of what happens on the health front. So I feel very thankful. I'm honored to get to do what I do. I love it. I love who I get to do it with. And the interesting thing on this, Mike, has been that so many of these teams that I work with and people, it's not a client relationship anymore. If I can pull it off and everybody was like, hey, we don't have any money to pay you, I think I would go work at Starbucks or something. And I just keep trying to do what I do because they're friends. They're friends that are like family. So many of them are. And so it's been a really busy season, and running ads and working with teams and coaching all around the world. But we're just getting great results back. We are really seeing that God is at work. And so it's a lot of fun, and it's very humbling to be able to just see these stories from the field of what God's Spirit is doing among these workers all around. And it's been interesting because it's not like one place or whatever. It's literally around the world. The harvest is plentiful. Things are happening, and that's exciting to see.
And I just love it. And I want our viewers and listeners to hear that the God you and I are serving is faithful in caring for you medically, but is caring for his church, Big C, globally.
Yeah.
And John here works with his own organization and company called Kavanaugh Media. And what they're involved in doing is helping workers around the world learn how to do social media marketing to find people interested in knowing more about Jesus and hooking them, connecting them to those who know the truth, and that can really encourage them. And so give us just another couple of insights in some of the stories you've been working with. And by the way, don't forget to tell us about the New York story as well, John.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll start with that one. I think I even shared last time, one of the ground zeros of this pandemic was the Jackson Heights area, so many different languages. Well, in my podcast that I do, I got a chance to interview one of the people that's influenced me tremendously, whose name is David Garrison. He wrote the book, Church Planting Movements. And so I was able to train with two other friends and coworkers of mine in January, this team there in New York City before the pandemic hit. Well, I just asked him, how are things? What is it looking like? And he said that these last 5 months since they began to implement have been the most fruitful months for their mission org in the history of their organization. It's called Global Gates. And that was just fascinating, so encouraging to me to hear that and to hear their team. One specific instance that took place just this last couple weeks ago was a person, now that New York's starting to open up, who got baptized. And this person was completely found because of ads that were ran. And I was on a different call with a completely different city. This was in a church that's reaching out to people in London today. And I was in the call with them. and they've had some similar experiences there. And my response to them was, don't ever forget the value of that one person, because it's possible. I work where at times we're spending a lot of money on ads, or we're talking about 100,000 people may have seen an ad or more. It was way over 2 million on one ad campaign I just did. And so you get caught on these big numbers and a lot of zeros at the end of it, but the value of one soul. And I said, that guy in New York City before this hit had no idea, but it was on a path towards a Christless eternity. And because of a tool that can be frustrating at times, social media, this guy saw something, reached out. He was actually asking, he was seeking, and he tried to go to a Catholic church first, and they just weren't able to help him. But now it's not only him, it's his whole family that have come to faith now as a result of this. And it gives me goosebumps at times to hear these stories back of people who were lost and now are found, and how these tools are allowing churches and mission teams to find them. And so those are just several of them that I've heard about. And then there is a team in North Africa who really have spearheaded a lot of this media to movement stuff. And I got to run ads on their behalf and with Jesus Film. So these two partnering together, and I was the one trying to pull this thing together on that. And they told me that they tended to only get 6 to 12. And that sounds amazing to me. 6 to 12 people a day sending them private messages, wanting to know about Jesus. And we ended up with like 400 plus messages that came in. Now, not all of those were people wanting to know Jesus, but that's a lot of messages. That's a lot of hope right there too. And so I just believe with all of my heart that in every location in the world, including here in the United States, that there are people who have never heard or who have never had the opportunity to hear it in a way where good news really hits to the heart of who they are. They hear a lot of times here in the States about what we're against or what we don't like, or unfortunately cultural Christianity creeps into it or whatever else. But to just be introduced to Jesus and to hear good news is such a privilege that we have. And so social media is one of those tools. It's not the only one, but wow, using social media, paid marketing, Google, others, it's exciting times because of the scale of it to me. It's humbling, to be honest with you, Mike.
That's so exciting and encouraging, John. And we know that Jesus is the chief shepherd. He is going to leave a lot in order to find the one, to find those that are lost. That's his heart. And again, I want us to just hone in, John, on the tools that Jesus as a shepherd has given to us, the church. That I know we talked just before this program about a missionary who is frustrated because he and his wife can't work in the African country they were called to serve. And yet here he is in the States where there's fast internet. He can upload a lot of content for his brothers and sisters back in Ghana. And he's actually doing some social media marketing from Indiana to Ghanaian towns and cities. And so his shepherding, his seeking, his using these tools never stopped, whether he was in Ghana or whether he was in Indiana. And that just flexibility that's there is encouraging to me. How can you encourage some of maybe our, their pastors, ministers out there? They're a church of 200 and they struggle even to get online.
Oh, yeah.
They're struggling in the whole regathering process. What could they do? What tools could they use in their hands that might just say, hey, here's a way to find some people, to create some hope in people's lives?
Sure. So I actually really appreciate this question, because this is one of the ones that's close to my heart are these U.S. churches that are struggling. There's really big churches and they've got huge staffs and whatever else, but with a decent internet connection, with a couple pieces of software, with making sure you have some good microphones set up, just thinking through some of those things, you can do this. So we're trying to find a church here. We've been visiting. We visited one down here in this area, and they said, well, we're struggling still 4 months into COVID, trying to get our services online. And also we're seeing how important a website is, and your Facebook and all of that, for a person who is looking for a church or who is seeking. So I would say our churches need to be known for the ability to pray for people. And so reach out to us if there's a way we can be praying for you, and being done digitally. There's some ways to do that. We're seeing really good results with that overseas. Depending on what kind of operating system they are using, there's some really non-expensive pieces of software that they could use, and as little low tech as even just a cell phone could be done if you put it in the right place and you got good enough lighting and whatever. The key there is people will check the church out long before they will ever visit, and they're looking to see, what is your church like? There was one of the churches we were looking at, and they had a loud screech in their Facebook feed, their live feed for their service, the whole service. And I'm like, we can't even listen to this. So, if you've got a soundboard, you can plug that in. There's some tools. And honestly, I would encourage them to reach out to you all, to reach out to me. I'm pretty sure we could help them to be able to do that. Another thing that I think is forward thinking, a couple things that we could be saying to our churches, is that we have opened up, we've turned the page, we've opened up a new can, we've turned the page to what people expect. And this isn't just with our services, but like with medicine. At the VA hospital they go to, they said they are doing most of their stuff through telecalls, video calls now, and that they love it and that people love it. And so there's a convenience, there's a level that comes to this where we are social beings, though. We want to be with other people. We want to laugh. We want to hug. We want to be around them. And Lord willing, someday that's going to happen again. But there's also parts to things that I think we can still use from what we're doing right now, even in the future. And so learning from this, maybe small group type stuff, checking in with people, calling on our people, our elderly, just learning how to do a FaceTime call with people. All of these things can help us be the church, be good news. And then the other part I would say would be really in my wheelhouse of the marketing part of a church. And a lot of times that may sound bad or leave a bad taste in people's mouths, but we're really just proclaiming, and we're trying to get that good news in front of somebody who's actually looking for it, who is seeking. One of the things that I'm noticing is that many church websites don't even have what's called the Facebook Pixel installed on their site, which can tell you when somebody comes to your site and what are they looking at, or are they searching. Even if you're not running ads, getting Google Analytics installed on your site, you can now see when someone comes to your site, what are they looking for? And they're telling you. It's like a person walking into a business and they tell the sales clerk, I'm looking for fly fishing rods or something like that. They're telling you what they're searching for spiritually, or what things are important to them. And so these insights, this information, this data, and the ability to retarget, in other words, send an ad about prayer, or we're here to help if you need some food or whatever you might need, to the people who are seeking for those things or who have looked at those things. That can be a really valuable tool, and you don't have to spend very much, literally like $1 a day. So we're talking about a very low ad spend when you do something like that. And so these are just tools that I hope that more and more churches will learn to use and to leverage to really just multiply their impact within their communities.
That's great. And, John, in addition to those who maybe never have gone into the church physical space, right now, the pandemic, there's a large amount of people who were in that space that have just kind of gone silent for a season. And this same set of strategies, the same set of tools can be useful to encourage and re-engage those who you had within your walls, if you will, that now have kind of gone silent for a season. And it's a way to minister to them, as well as finding those that have got some really heartfelt eternal asking questions about them as well. I know that I enjoy, with the cup of coffee and the recliner after my Bible reading, just having my phone and texting and asking people. Most of them are not followers of Jesus. How was your day? How is your back? How is work? How is that struggle with your marriage? I've been praying. You shared with me in your more vulnerable time. And they go over and over the answer. They go, wow, I had no idea. I just had lunch again very carefully last week with one of the men that said, I am so excited about a new business. Mike, I know you pray for me, and I don't know that I understand all of that, but I'm just so excited because I got this new opportunity. And he was seeing prayer work in his life. And so,
Mhm.
to your point, there are ways that are cheap and simple that can be effective.
Oh yeah. Well, I would add to that, Mike, the tool that you all have designed, that Redux tool, is built exactly for that. So how many times we hear people say, "Oh, hey, I'll be praying for that," and they mean it, but then they forget unless they write that down. And so to have it in a tool on the best communication device that we've ever had, which is these cell phones, and the open rate it's high 90 percentile of a person. I've received these texts from you of just saying, "Hey, I'm praying for you." And so I know the value of that. And so those two pieces together can really leverage helping us remember and to pray for people and what we're praying for, as well as a communication capability right away to just reach out to them and share those prayer requests.
Absolutely. And so, man, we've continued to burn our time here. Let's finish up. We're going to share a couple of links to either myself and our staff, or to John, and let you, as you watch, listen, maybe have access to some of that resource that we've been mentioning. But John, as we close out, what would you like to tell our audience today? And kind of round two here. Be encouraged. Hey, we know this is not going to be a marathon. This is a triathlon. We're going to run. It's going to be strong. It's going to be hard. But the odds are not in our favor. But that's okay, because God has never depended on the odds being in his favor. He actually likes it the other way, because then people see very, very obviously it wasn't a human, it wasn't a minister, it wasn't an organization, a program. It was God that showed
Yeah.
up.
And he gets the glory as a result of that. Well, the world I live in, what we're doing, and all the people I get to work with, I say it a lot on my podcast. It's really spiritual. It's really just about what the Holy Spirit is doing. And we can do things completely wrong, but if we're submitting everything to him, he is going to do what only he can do. And I think if I was able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with these different preachers and pastors and ministers out there that we get to work with, and you and I and others, that I think it is the word that you used that really just resonated with me, that it is a marathon. It is like a triathlon. And I used to do them. I've done an Ironman, and I was inspired by a lady who, I think she never lost a single Ironman race she did. And her nickname was Smiles. And I read her book. She wrote some about what she would do. And she said, when you got to the run, that's the hardest part. And I can attest to that. You just feel like stopping. You feel like I don't have anything left. And she said, I would welcome that because I knew it was coming, and I would smile, and I would just sit there and I would smile the whole time and into this. And she said, my mind changed, my attitude changed, all of that. And she was amazing. And I would say to them, I know we're in a tough season and it's hard. And none of us have answers right now to so much of what's going on. And we don't know who to believe, and we don't know what to believe. And things continually seem to be changing. And yet God is constant. None of this is happening without his awareness of it. He knows what he is doing. He will get glory. And there are people during this season right now that are open to the gospel who would have never been that way. And my prayer is that the church will be good news, and we'll find ways to share good news, and we'll pray for the people in the community. And if we can just leverage or change that just a little bit, a church of 100, if only 20 of the people are actively doing stuff, which is that Pareto principle, 80% of the work's done by 20% of the people, 80% of the giving, all of that. For a church of 100, if we can bump that up using tools and discipleship and incorporating more and more people, even if we never have one more person in our church building come in the door, the impact on our communities, if we go from 20 people to 40, could be exponential there. And so I just pray people will keep pushing forward. We'll smile in the face of the adversity because God's in control. He really is, among all things that are going on, and we will just keep pushing forward. And in the darkest times of my cancer journey and everything else, I just remind myself, let's do this again tomorrow. Let's get up. Let's push again. Let's take another step. And it's the same thing with these really hard races and all of that. let's take another step with Jesus each and every day, and the church is going to be okay. It really is. It's strong. God is at work, and it's growing, not just around the world, here in the United States as well, I think.
Wow. Great words. I won't touch that because it was fabulous. John Rawls, thank you. For all of you joining us today on this episode of Faith Greater Than Fear, we hope you were blessed. If you were in any way, if it touched your heart, it's probably going to touch somebody else's. Share it on social media. Bless somebody today. Think of them, pray for them, reach out to them in any and all kinds of ways, as our brother John has said. And so, John, thank you. And from all of us to all of you listening, thank you. Until next time. Blessings.